I'm infatuated with her, and it wasn't at a healthy level. I would think about her every moment she was away. I would sometimes sit on my couch and just stare at my phone waiting for her to text me, and I'd tell myself, don't contact her, don't. It'll come off as too strong. But then I'd still find myself clicking her name on my contact list before my inner voice would continue. You don't want her to know how desperately smitten you are with her. It's unattractive. It'll scare her off. No, you must wait for her to call you this time. But it was excruciating and exhausting. It was unbearable. I had once heard that the ancient Greeks believed that falling madly and irrationally in love with somebody was a curse, that you would wish upon your enemies. I could never understand what they meant. After all, isn't falling head over heels in love the ultimate goal nowadays? But now that's happened to me, I have to say, the ancient Greeks were right. This is a curse. I was barely in control of myself, almost as though my infatuation with her had possessed me. The two of us were sexually active together, but still in the dating phase. We were at that make or break era of a blossoming relationship, where we'd either have the talk, and from that talk, we would formally be in a relationship, or we would start to slowly drift apart. The latter of which, I don't think I'd be able to cope with. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to. Almost everything about her captivated me. The way she had held her hand over her mouth when she laughed. How she'd caress the pendant of her necklace when she was frightened. How she'd twirl her hair and her finger when she was excited. All of it. Her smell, her smile, her eyes. I loved it all. Yeah, I know. It probably makes you sick reading about it. I feel the same way. I was never the hopeless romantic type, but now I can't stop fantasizing about her. I would think about us doing that 3-hour hike up to that magnificent view from one of our first dates, to that first kiss as we overlooked the lights of the city. But this time, I'd get down on one knee and I'd bring out the ring. And well, everybody knows what would happen next. Alright, fine, I'll stop. Yes, this is a girl I'd only been casually dating for a couple of months. I shouldn't be thinking about proposing yet, I know that. I'm just barely able to control myself any longer. I feel as though I'm losing power over the decisions. And that brings me to why I'm here writing about this moment. It started with the first real thing that troubled me about her. We'd never actually spend a night together, no matter how late she was over. Once either of us showed signs of being tired, she would up and leave. She wouldn't leave awkwardly or in anger, just a casual kiss goodnight and a smile, and a call me soon. It was something I didn't really even notice for the first few times that she did it, but after almost 8 weeks of dating, it became strange, and I had to ask her about it. It took drinking almost an entire bottle of wine before I had the courage to do so. She looked almost defeated when I asked and lowered her eyes in embarrassment. I knew this talk would come eventually, she started. She took in a deep breath with a long, drawn-out exhale. Recently, she paused again. I've been talking in my sleep. She shook her head in embarrassment. It's called somniloquy. I looked it up. I shrugged and I laughed out loud. I couldn't help myself. My demeanor seemed to say, that's it? No, Stephen, listen, she said. She wasn't laughing. It's bad. It's out of control. And it's not just random words or gibberish. No, it's horrible. I say terrible, disgusting things. She was starting to raise her voice at me. Her breath was getting heavy and she was tearing up. I quickly approached her and I held her. I told her that it couldn't be that bad, and I told her that I would spend the night. And I told her that she was exaggerating. I was wrong. The night that we stayed over together, she warned me of something before falling asleep. She said, "Whatever you do, don't wake me up. It makes me really scared and disoriented, and if that happens, and don't respond to me, just ignore it." I nodded and agreed. "If it becomes too much," she continued, "just leave the room and sleep on the couch. I won't mind." I told her not to worry about it. I told her that I wouldn't be a baby and I just wouldn't make a big deal out of it. I told her that I wouldn't leave to the couch and I'd stay beside her all night in the bed. I was wrong. I couldn't even last one night. We both fell asleep without incident. I don't know how many hours had passed, but I woke up in the dark with the sensation that someone was watching me. Then I remembered. She was with me. She was actually spending the night. I smiled. But then I noticed the shadowy outline of her sitting up on the bed, and she was looking down at me. Not looking, actually. More like staring. It creeped me out, and I'll admit it. Her posture was it was different than I've ever seen her. It was as if it wasn't even her. Then she spoke, but it wasn't her voice that I heard. It was a lower and gravelly sounding voice, like out of a Conjuring movie. She opens her mouth slowly, and she says,
"I'll chew the skin from your bones."
I froze. At first, I just kept looking at her. This was not expected at all. I thought it would be more like the way Tourette's is often portrayed. Just some random swearing and shouting. And I honestly thought to myself, what will I do if she attacks me right now? Because that's exactly how I felt. What if she really does try to chew the skin from my bones? But then she just sat back down and went back to sleep. I was really creeped out. I couldn't really fall back asleep, but I tried to lay back down and ignore her. I struggled. I couldn't even close my eyes without thinking, maybe she's sitting up again and staring at me. And then one time I rolled over to look at her, and she was. Her face was pressed right towards mine. Her breath was foul and rotted, something that was most certainly not normal for her. She spoke again in the same voice as before.
"If you don't move to the couch, you'll be dead by morning."
Let me just say this now. That did it for me. I sat up in a moment and I headed for the living room. She made some sort of wheezing sound as I left. I think it was supposed to be laughter. I was lying on the couch out in the living room, but I wasn't going to be able to fall back asleep. I was just too shaken. I was staring out towards the window as the moonlight came into the house, hoping to see the first few hints of the sun rising. And then I heard something from the bedroom. I listened, and then I heard it again.
"Stephen."
It was that same low and horrifying voice. It sounded like a witch. I just tried to ignore it at first, but then she continued.
"Stephen."
Still, I said nothing.
"I know you can hear me, Stephen. You're awake now. Why don't you come back to the bedroom?"
The voice barely sounded like a human. And then I also heard,
"Or maybe you prefer I come to you."
I still didn't say anything. I was told not to, but I listened. If I heard her start working towards the bedroom door, I'm not even joking, I would have ran right out of that house. But then she had asked me not to respond to her sleep talking, so I didn't. And then I heard her once more.
"Sorry if this spoils your plans."
She began laughing.
"The two of you were supposed to walk that trail again."
I wasn't even remotely prepared for what she would say next. She began to continue.
"You'd both be so tired when you reach the top, you'd overlook the city. Then you'll get on one knee and bring out the ring."
She started laughing, and that's when I realized this wasn't a problem with sleep talking. It was something much more. It was supernatural. I have never told anybody about my proposal fantasy. There was simply no way she could have known about any of it. This was no longer merely talking in one's sleep. This was about possession. I can't go back into the bedroom. I have no idea what would happen if I did. Instead, I'm going to wait it out, hold up in my living room until the sun rises. I have a couple more hours left, and I can hear her laughing occasionally in the bedroom, also saying my name in that creepy voice. But as I sit still on my couch writing this out, this is what scares me the most. Maybe my infatuation and utter obsession with her wasn't normal. I said that before, like I felt like I was losing control of myself. More so, I believe, than the typical falling in love story. No. I fear that the infatuation I felt was the entity slowly taking control of me, of it controlling my thoughts, my fears, my ambitions, my emotions, my anxieties. Maybe once I become completely absorbed, a transfer would have occurred, and she would be free of it. I know I should leave, that I should open the front door, get in my car, drive away from here, and never come back. But I can't. I can't leave her. I already lost control. I'm infatuated with her. Utterly infatuated.